Prince Andrew. The name alone conjures images of scandal, disgrace, and a reputation in tatters. But how did we get here? How did a member of the royal family, born into privilege and opportunity, become a pariah, stripped of his titles and shunned by society? The story, as always, is complex. A tapestry woven from threads of entitlement, arrogance, and a stunning lack of self-awareness. And it's a story that continues to unfold, with new details emerging even now, each one adding another layer of darkness to the portrait of a man who seemed destined for a fall. We've heard whispers, rumors, and carefully worded statements for years. But recently, the dam has broken. Two women, separated by decades, have come forward to offer strikingly similar accounts of the man behind the title. The man who is now simply known as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. Their voices, though distinct, echo the same damning truth. Andrew's downfall wasn't a sudden event, a single misstep. It was the inevitable consequence of a lifetime of unchecked behavior, a deeply ingrained sense of entitlement that poisoned everything he touched. Let's start with Susanna Constantine, a name familiar to many for her television work and her own dalliance within royal circles. She dated David Armstrong Jones, son of Princess Margaret, for 6 years, granting her a unique vantage point into the inner workings of the royal family. And what she saw of Andrew left a lasting impression, one she's now willing to share with brutal honesty. In a recent podcast appearance, Constantine didn't mince words. She described Andrew as ignorant and entitled, someone who genuinely believes the world owes him a favor and that he is above the law. It's a harsh assessment, delivered with the kind of candor that only comes from someone who has witnessed the behavior firsthand. She didn't present it as a personal vendetta, but as a simple, unavoidable truth. Constantine's words carry weight, not because of any sensationalist agenda, but because of her position. She moved within the royal sphere. She understood the protocols and expectations, and she chose her words carefully during that time. So, when someone like that speaks so openly, it's a signal that the situation is far more dire than the palace spin doctors would have us believe. Her most pointed criticism centered on Andrew's sense of entitlement, a trait she described as the worst anyone can possess. It's a sentiment that resonates deeply, especially in a world increasingly weary of the privileged elite who seem to operate by their own set of rules. Consider her anecdote about Andrew's helicopter license. Constantine, whose own son serves in the Royal Navy, understands the rigorous standards required to earn those wings. Her implication is clear. Andrew's path was paved with privilege, doors open for him that would have remained firmly shut for anyone else. It's a subtle jab, but one that cuts to the heart of the matter. Andrew's life has been defined by access and opportunity, not earned through merit or hard work, but simply bestowed upon him by birthright. It's a reality that has fueled resentment and suspicion for decades, and one that ultimately contributed to his undoing. But Constantine also offered a sliver of sympathy, acknowledging the challenges of growing up as a royal spare, born into immense wealth and privilege, but without a clear purpose. It's a point many royal commentators have made, the idea that Andrew's missteps stem from a lack of direction, a void he attempted to fill with reckless behavior and a relentless pursuit of pleasure. However, Constance quickly dismisses this as an excuse. No upbringing, no circumstance can justify the level of entitlement she witnessed. It's a powerful statement, a refusal to excuse behavior that she clearly finds reprehensible. It's a reminder that even those who understand the pressures of royal life see Andrew's actions as a personal failing, not simply a consequence of his upbringing. In fact, Constantine offers a stark contrast between Andrew and his nieces, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. She praises them as sensible, charming, and grounded, a testament to the qualities instilled in them by their parents. The implication is clear. If Beatrice and Eugenie can navigate the treacherous waters of royal life with grace and humility, then Andrew's failings cannot be excused by circumstance. It begs the question, how can two daughters raised by parents known for arrogance and bad judgment turn out so well, while Andrew, with all the advantages of birth and privilege, has crashed and burned so spectacularly? But Constantine isn't the only woman from Andrew's past to offer a damning assessment. Decades before the Epstein scandal, another voice emerged, a woman who saw the red flags waving long before anyone else. Her name was Vicky Hodge, a glamorous actress and model who crossed paths with Andrew in Barbados in 1983. She was older, more experienced, and far more worldly than the young prince, and she saw through his facade almost immediately. According to biographer Andrew Lowy, Hodge's first impressions were far from flattering. She found Andrew's endless jokes unfunny, his attempts at charm clumsy and transparent. He seemed to crave attention, to revel in the sound of his own voice, regardless of whether anyone was actually listening. And then there was the incident in the sea, a display of nudity that spoke volumes about his need for validation and his disregard for boundaries. Their brief romance lasted only 10 days, but it was enough for Hodge to form a lasting impression. She described him as immature, full of himself, flirtatious, and utterly convinced of his own charm. He declared his love for her, then vanished without a trace, leaving her with nothing but a broken heart and a sense of disillusion. But it was what she said to the press weeks later that now reads like a chilling prophecy. Hodge warned that Andrew was headstrong and refused to listen to advice unless it suited him. She predicted that he needed someone strong enough to stop him from getting into escapades that would embarrass himself and the royal family. It was a remarkable statement, a glimpse into the future that no one could have fully comprehended at the time. No one knew then that Andrew would become entangled in a web of scandal and disgrace, that he would be stripped of his honors and banished from public life. Yet Hodge's description of Andrew perfectly aligns with the portrait that has emerged over the years. A man unwilling to learn, unwilling to listen, unwilling to recognize the consequences of his actions until it was too late. The echoes between Hodge's early observations and Constantine's more recent assessments are undeniable. Two women, separated by decades, describing the same fundamental flaws: entitlement, ignorance, arrogance, immaturity, a refusal to listen, a belief that rules simply didn't apply to him. Their accounts blend seamlessly with the stories told by former staff members, biographers, and royal insiders. Tales of tantrums, rudeness, lewd jokes, pranks aimed at humiliating women, lavish spending, questionable travel, a long trail of behavior that always seemed to push boundaries simply because he believed he could. And it's this pattern of behavior that ultimately led to his downfall. The constant thread running through these accounts is a profound lack of empathy, a disconnect from the consequences of his actions. He existed in a bubble of privilege, where the normal rules of social interaction didn't seem to apply. If he had to slow down for even a moment, the expletives would fly. Ordinary people became effing buffoons, simply for inconveniencing him. There was no leeway, no understanding, only the expectation that the world should bend to his will. It's a portrait of someone who never learned to consider the feelings of others, someone who saw people as pawns in his own personal game. And it's a particularly disturbing picture when you consider the context. A member of the royal family, someone who should embody duty, service, and respect. Instead, we see a man who used his position to bully, humiliate, and exploit those around him. Consider the stories of Andrew's behavior at private parties. Crude, juvenile, almost always aimed at women. Humiliation as entertainment. Social gatherings turned into stages for pranks that left people shocked rather than amused. Unzipping a woman's dress in front of the room. Shoving a young guest's face into a plate of food. These aren't the actions of a sophisticated royal, but of a spoiled brat desperate for attention, willing to inflict pain and embarrassment to get it. And the most telling detail, repeated across accounts, is that he never seemed embarrassed or apologetic. He enjoyed being the center of attention, even when it came at someone else's expense. It's a chilling glimpse into a mindset that sees other people as objects, as props in his own personal drama. These stories, taken together, paint a devastating picture of a man whose character flaws were apparent long before the Epstein scandal brought him crashing down. The entitlement, the arrogance, the immaturity, the lack of empathy. These weren't sudden developments, but deeply ingrained traits that shaped his behavior for decades. And the fact that so many people, from former girlfriends to staff members, have come forward with similar accounts suggests that this wasn't just a matter of a few isolated incidents. This was a pattern of behavior, a consistent display of disrespect and disregard that defined his interactions with the world. It's a reminder that privilege, without responsibility, is a dangerous thing. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was given everything: wealth, status, opportunity, but he lacked the character, the humility, and the self-awareness to use those gifts wisely. He squandered his potential, betrayed the trust placed in him, and ultimately brought shame upon himself and the royal family. Now, stripped of his titles and banished from public life, he faces the consequences of his action. But the damage is done, the reputation is tarnished, and the story of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that even those born into the highest echelons of society are not immune to the consequences of their own bad behavior. The world may owe you nothing, but you owe the world decency.